carriage left me at the edge of the woods, where the road turned narrow and the trees pressed close like black sentinels. Snow clung to the branches and the air was colder than I thought possible. I stood alone, clutching the lantern Father Roberto had given me, staring at the path that led into the valley. There was no village, no sign of life, only the hush of wind through the pines. Somewhere ahead, hidden beyond the trees, lay the cemetery they called the Field of Crosses. I had heard whispers about this place before Vatican chose me. They said thousands of iron crosses rusted there, leaning at odd angles, covered in moss and ice. They said it was not a burial ground, but a prison, a place where the dead did not sleep, but waited. I followed the path until the trees broke open, and I saw it. The graveyard stretched across the hill like a sea of iron. Crosses thrust from the earth in every direction, some cracked, some bent, all dark with age. Snow fell gently over them, but no white stayed long. The metal seemed to reject it, as if nothing pure could rest here. At the gate stood Father Roberto. His beard was white, his eyes sharp despite the years. He held a staff carved with Latin words too worn to read. When he saw me, he lifted a hand in greeting, but his expression was grave. "You're late, Brother Bruno," he said. His voice carried no anger, only weariness. "Night comes fast here, and the night listens." I bowed my head. "Forgive me. The road was long." He studied me, then gestured toward the gate. "Once you enter, you must remember the rules. Forget them, and you will not last long." He spoke the rules slowly, as if carving them into my bones. Rule 1. Pray once at every gate you pass. Rule 2. Never light a lantern among the graves after midnight. Rule 3. Do not answer when a voice calls your name from the earth. Rule 4. Turn one gravestone upright every dawn. Rule 5. Never let the 13th bell toll alone. "These rules are not guidance," Roberto said. "They are chains. If you obey, the chains will hold. If you fail, the chains will break, and something will step free." I swallowed hard, clutching the lantern tighter. The gates creaked as he pushed them open. We stepped inside, and the silence was immediate. The world beyond seemed cut away, as though the iron fence itself severed sound. Only the crunch of snow beneath our boots remained. We walked among the crosses. They loomed tall, their shadows stretching like spears. I tried to count them, but lost track after 100. Each one bore a name, carved in stone, though the letters were worn. Some I recognized, names of monks I had read in the archives, men who had vanished without record. "Every watcher before you lies here," Roberto said softly. "Each one thought he would endure. Each one failed." We stopped before a large stone in the center, black with age. Roberto pointed at the inscription. "Brother Corrado," the name struck me like a hammer. Corrado had been my friend, my companion during training. He had disappeared years ago, and Vatican had said nothing. Now I knew where he had gone. My chest tightened. "He was here before me?" Roberto nodded. "He was chosen, as you are now." I stared at the stone, my breath misting. The thought of Corrado buried beneath iron and earth filled me with dread, but as I knelt closer, I swore I felt warmth against my skin. The ground seemed to pulse faintly, like a heart. Roberto touched my shoulder. "Do not linger. The graves do not like to be watched." We returned to the chapel beside the graveyard, a small stone building with a single bell tower rising above. Inside, the air smelled of wax and smoke. Roberto gave me a bed of straw in a narrow cell and left me to prepare for the night, but I could not sleep. My mind returned again and again to Corrado's name. Why him? Why me? Midnight came. The wind outside died suddenly, leaving the world unnaturally still. My lantern flickered, though no draft touched it. Then I heard it. A voice. It came from the direction of the graveyard, muffled by earth, but clear enough to chill me. Bruno. I froze. My breath caught. The voice was familiar. It was Corrado. Bruno, it called again, softer this time, pleading. My hands shook. The rule hammered in my head. Do not answer when a voice calls your name from the earth. Every instinct screamed to respond, to call back, to demand the truth. My lips parted. The sound of my own breath filled the cell. I forced my mouth shut, clutched the lantern, and prayed. The voice faded into the silence, leaving me trembling. When I finally dared to move, I saw frost creeping along the edges of the cell window, patterns like wings spreading across the glass. Morning came late on the mountain. The sky was a dull gray, and the frost on the chapel windows had thickened overnight, the patterns spreading like veins. I rose from the straw bed, stiff and cold, and found Father Roberto waiting by the door. His face was drawn, his eyes bloodshot. "You survived your first night," he said. "That is more than many can claim." I wanted to tell him about the voice, about how Corrado had called me, but the words died in my throat. He would know. He always knew. Instead, he gestured for me to follow. "There is someone you must meet." We crossed the graveyard together. Snow crunched beneath our boots, and the iron crosses loomed above us like a forest of rusted spears. Some leaned, some had toppled, others were half buried. I kept my eyes forward, afraid of seeing another familiar name. At the far end stood a small stone building, its door heavy with chains. Roberto unlocked it and pushed it open. Inside, the air smelled of dust, candle wax, and old ink. Books lined the shelves, parchment-filled wooden drawers, and on a central table lay a thick leather volume bound with iron clasps. Sister Laura stood beside it. Her habit was gray with age, her face pale but her eyes sharp. She bowed slightly when she saw me. "This is the register," Roberto said. "Every watcher has their name written here. Every grave outside matches a page within." Laura opened the book, and the pages creaked like brittle bone. Names filled each one, written in careful hand, some in faded ink, others fresh. She traced a line with her finger and looked at me. "Brother Corrado." The letters struck me like a blade. I leaned closer, and there it was, his name in dark ink, marked with a cross beside it. The same name carved on the stone I'd seen last night. "He was my friend," I whispered. "We trained together. He wanted to serve, to heal. Why is he here?" Laura's eyes softened, but her voice remained steady. "Because he was chosen, as you are." I stared at the page, my chest tightening. "Did he fail?" Roberto's hand gripped my shoulder. "All watchers fail. That is why you are here." The weight of his words crushed me. All watchers fail. The crosses outside were proof. Every man who came here, every vow, every prayer ended the same way, with a grave. Laura turned another page, revealing more names row upon row. Every violation weakens the chains. Every chain that breaks frees one who was buried long ago. The watchers hold them, but only until the rules are broken. Then the burden passes to the next. I swallowed hard. So Corrado, when he broke the rules, one more of the fallen was set loose, Laura finished quietly. That is how it has always been. The room seemed colder. I imagined the earth shifting beneath the crosses, the whispering I had heard in the night, the voice of Corrado himself. If he was still calling, was he truly gone? Or had some part of him been devoured, leaving only the voice to tempt me? I closed the register, unable to look longer. The iron clasps clicked shut like a lock. Laura studied me. "You should understand what it means to stand watch here. You are not guarding the dead. You are guarding what is left of heaven's traitors, and they will call to you every night until you join them." Her words echoed in the stone chamber. I felt the lantern in my hand grow heavier. Roberto spoke again, his tone sharp. "Do not let pity undo you. Corrado is gone. What calls from his grave is not your friend. I nodded, but my heart rebelled. I remembered Corrado's laughter, his voice when we sang together in the chapel of our youth. Last night's whisper had been the same voice. How could I believe it was nothing but a shadow? We left the stone house, the register locked once more. Outside, the wind howled low, carrying with it the faintest sound of choral voices. I froze, listening, but Roberto barked, "Keep walking." We reached the chapel just as the 13th bell began to toll. I felt the vibration deep in my chest. Laura crossed herself, lips moving in silent prayer. The sound faded. The graveyard was still. But when I looked back, I thought I saw one of the iron crosses tilt further, as if pushed from below. The second night began with heavy clouds pressing low, sealing the valley in a suffocating gloom. I carried my lantern to the gates, my breath thick in the air. My mind ached from the whispers of the night before, and I felt the exhaustion sinking deep into my bones. The path wound back toward the outer fence. Every gate bore iron hinges streaked with rust, and every time I passed through, I stopped to pray, whispering the words Father Roberto had taught me. Rule 1. Pray at every gate. But as the hours dragged on, the silence pressed harder. The crosses leaned in the snow, the wind circled like a beast waiting to strike, and the black sky gave no comfort. My lips grew numb from the endless prayers. My eyelids sagged. By the third hour, I stumbled. I reached the northern gate, pushed it open, and walked through without a word. The moment I realized, my chest seized. The rule pounded in my skull, pray once at every gate. My lips parted too late. The gate slammed behind me with a clang that echoed like a curse. The ground trembled under my feet. The iron crosses nearest to me shook as if something below them strained against the earth. I fell to my knees, clutching the lantern. A thin crack split the frost, running between two graves, and from below came a single sound, a breath, long and cold, exhaled from a throat buried deep. I froze, choking back a cry. The lantern flame bent sideways, though no wind touched it. Then the whisper began. Not Corrado's voice this time, but a dozen voices layered together, hollow and pleading. Chains break, chains break, chains break. The voices sank back into the ground, leaving silence heavier than before. I forced myself to my feet, muttering a prayer, stumbling back toward the chapel, my heart hammered against my ribs, my breath ragged. At dawn, the bell tolled once, slow and deep. I had survived the night, but I knew something had changed. Inside the stone house, Sister Laura waited by the register. She saw my face and knew. Without a word, she opened the book. A new mark had appeared beside an old name, written in ink that bled across the parchment. She touched the page with trembling fingers. You faltered. My throat was dry. I forgot the prayer, only once. Her eyes were full of sorrow. Once is enough. Each mistake tears at the chains. Each slip of the tongue, each broken silence, each step without ritual. It all weakens the seal. One day, enough breaks, and the one beneath is free. I stared at the page. The ink still glistened, as if wet with blood. So every watcher who failed, I whispered. Laura closed the book sharply. Every one of them let something free. And when they were gone, the duty passed to the next. I felt the weight settle in my chest. Corrado and all the others. Each one faltered. Each one fed the grave. Roberto entered then, his expression grim. You will stumble again. The rules are not meant to be followed forever. They are meant to break you. That is why there are so many crosses outside. Each one marks the moment when obedience ended. And something else rose. His words chilled me. So why continue at all? Why not end it now? Roberto's eyes hardened. Because the world beyond these gates does not know. If we abandon the watch, The earth itself will become a grave. His voice left no room for argument, yet in his silence I heard fear. That night when the wind returned and the frost crept higher on the chapel walls, I prayed longer than before. My voice cracked, my lips bled, but still I whispered the same words over and over, desperate not to forget. But the memory of that single missed prayer gnawed at me. Somewhere beneath the iron and stone, I knew something had stirred, and it would not sleep again. The third night fell heavier than the last. Clouds smothered the moon, and the graveyard lay in a darkness deeper than shadow. I carried my lantern to the gates, praying louder than before, forcing the words past my trembling lips. My throat burned, but I would not forget again. Snow drifted across the crosses, the iron gleaming faintly in the lantern light. The silence was oppressive, pressing against my ears until I could hear my own heartbeat. I thought perhaps this night would pass quietly. I was wrong. It began as a hum, so low I thought it was the wind. But the air was still, and the sound rose from the ground itself. My boots vibrated against the frozen soil. The hum swelled into voices, layered, discordant, yet strangely ordered. The black choir. They sang from beneath the earth, thousands of voices woven into one. The melody was almost holy, shaped like a hymn, but twisted. Words of prayer spoken backward, fractured Latin that scraped across my soul. I froze in the path between the graves, my breath caught, my ears straining. Part of me wanted to flee, but another part wanted to listen closer. The song was terrible, yet beautiful, like fire glimpsed through stained glass. Bruno, the voices wove my name into the chant. Join us, sing. My chest tightened, my lips trembled. The rhythm pulled at me, drawing the words from my memory, psalms I had sung 1,000 times in the monastery of my youth. The choir had reshaped them, but the pattern remained familiar, tempting. Rule 3. Do not answer when a voice calls your name. But this was more than a call. It was worship, a mass of the damned, and they wanted me to be their priest. The lantern flickered. The shadows of the crosses leaned in, stretching across the snow like grasping hands. My body swayed, my lips parting. The first syllable rose in my throat. Then, a sharp pain shot through my hand. I looked down. My fingers had clenched the lantern so hard that the metal cut into my skin. Blood dripped onto the snow, dark against the pale ground. The sting broke the trance. I dropped to my knees, forcing my mouth shut, clenching my teeth until my jaw ached. The choir grew louder, furious now, their chant twisting into a roar. The crosses rattled, snow cascading from their iron arms. Chains break, chains break. The voices surged, pressing against me like a wave. My ears rang, my vision blurred, but still I would not answer. I pressed my bleeding hand to my chest and prayed silently. Words so broken they barely formed, but mine, not theirs. The choir shrieked as one, a soundless scream that shook the soil. Then, just as suddenly, they fell silent. The graveyard stilled. Only the hiss of the lantern remained. I collapsed in the snow, gasping, sweat freezing against my skin. My hand throbbed, blood soaking into the frost. I had resisted, but barely. When dawn came, I staggered back to the chapel. Sister Laura waited, her eyes searching my face. She saw the blood and frowned. "You hurt them," she said. It was not a question. I nodded, too tired to lie. Her voice dropped. "They will not stop. Each night they sing louder. They want you to falter. And if you sing with them, even one word, the seraph of ashes will rise." The name chilled me. I had not heard it before, but the way she spoke, it told me enough. "Then what chance do I have?" I asked. My voice cracked, weak. Laura closed her eyes. Every watcher asks the same question. None of them found the answer. Her words sank like stone. I thought of Corrado, of his name carved in iron, of his voice calling to me in the dark. If he had heard the choir, had he sung? I pressed my wounded hand to my chest and whispered, "I will not be another cross." But in the back of my mind, the song lingered, soft and insistent, waiting for me to join. The fourth night came with no stars. Clouds smothered the sky, and the air was heavy, as if the mountain itself held its breath. I walked the path between the crosses, lantern clutched tight, lips moving in endless prayer. My wounded hand throbbed, every beat a reminder of the black choir. The graveyard was too still. Even the wind refused to enter. I turned a corner, passing a row of leaning stones, when I froze. There, standing in the snow, was Brother Corrado. His robe was the same he had worn in training, simple black with a frayed cord at the waist. His hair fell loose around his shoulders. His face pale but familiar. He smiled, faint and sad, as if he had waited years for me. "Bruno," he said softly. His voice was exactly as I remembered, warm, alive. My throat tightened. "It cannot be you." He stepped closer. His feet left no mark in the snow. "It is me. They lied to you. I was never gone. I was waiting." The rule pounded in my head: do not answer when a voice calls your name from the earth. But this was no voice in the soil. This was him standing before me. I clutched the lantern harder. "You are dead. I saw your name. I saw your stone." Corrado's eyes flickered, sorrowful. "Do you think those names mean the end?" "We are not gone. We are trapped. Help me, Bruno. Free me. Look at my stone. You will see the truth." My legs trembled. The iron crosses around us seemed to lean closer, their shadows stretching like claws. Corrado reached out a hand. His skin was pale, veins faint beneath it, but I remembered that hand. We had clasped it in oath when we joined the order. I shook my head. "You are not him. You are something wearing him." His voice broke, full of grief. "Then prove it. Look at my stone. If you see only a name, then walk away. But if you see more, you will know." My breath fogged the air. My heart hammered. The rule pressed against my skull: never look too long at a grave. Yet my eyes burned with longing. Slowly, against every instinct, I turned. Brother Corrado. The letters glowed faintly, blood red against the stone. The ground beneath it pulsed like a beating heart. A whisper rose from the soil, clear and sharp. "Chains break!" The earth cracked, frost splitting apart, and a breath of cold air rushed upward. Shadows curled around my feet, twisting like fingers. I staggered back, nearly dropping the lantern. Corrado's face twisted, his smile widening into something cruel. His eyes blackened, his voice doubled. "Yes, that is it. See me. Hear me. Break the chain." The crosses rattled, the snow hissing as it fell. The nameless dead stirred beneath, their whispers surging, dozens of voices tangled together. "Join us. Break us free. Break us free." I pressed my bleeding hand to the lantern, forcing the pain to cut through the haze. "You are not Corrado. You are nothing but ash in chains." The figure before me shuddered, its skin cracking, smoke leaking from its mouth. Then it dissolved into shadow, sucked back into the earth with a hiss. The ground sealed, the glow fading from the stone. The whispers retreated, though not entirely. They lingered, stronger now, more insistent. I collapsed to my knees, chest heaving. My eyes burned with tears I could not stop. I had seen his face, heard his voice, and for a moment I had believed. When dawn came, Sister Laura found me in the chapel, my lantern still clutched in shaking hands. She saw the look in my eyes and asked nothing, but later in the stone house she opened the register again. A new mark had appeared, ink dark and wet. "You looked," she said quietly. I bowed my head. I could not help it. Her hands trembled as she shut the book. Every watcher says the same, and every time the chains weaken further. I turned away, my throat raw. Outside, the bells tolled, their sound heavy with doom. And in the silence that followed, I thought I heard Corrado's voice once more, whispering from beneath the earth. The morning after Corrado's apparition, I sat in the chapel with my head bowed, too tired to pray. My hands shook, the lantern still stained with dried blood. The memory of his face haunted me, his eyes, his voice, the way he had begged. Sister Laura entered quietly, carrying the iron-bound register against her chest. She looked at me for a long time before speaking. "You are not the first to see someone you loved among the graves," she said, "and you will not be the last." I lifted my head slowly. It was him. It had to be him. Her eyes were cold. It was not. What you saw was only the chain unraveling, but there is more you must know. She set the register on the altar and unfastened the clasps. The pages creaked open, rows of names inked in careful script. I had seen these pages before, but this time she turned further, past the clean entries, to the back where parchment had darkened and edges curled. Hidden behind a loose sheet was another section, written in jagged hand, the letters thick as if scratched in blood. She spread it open. "These are the pages Roberto never wanted you to see," she whispered. The script was chaotic, but I read enough. Each line paired a watcher's name with another mark beside it. Not a cross, not a blessing, but a symbol, sharp and angular. Next to each symbol was a word, a name I did not recognize. Names not human. "Who are these?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Laura traced one with her finger. "They are the fallen, angels who betrayed heaven, bound in the graves you walk each night. Every watcher chained one by his death, and every time a watcher failed, another was freed." The words hit like a blade. I looked back at the rows of crosses outside the chapel door, the sea of rust and snow. Thousands. "How many are left?" I whispered. Her lips trembled. "Too few. Most chains have already broken. Many of the graves are empty now, though their stones still stand. The ones you hear at night are the remnants, the last still bound. The rest—" She stopped, her voice fading. "The rest are out there," I finished for her. "The world beyond the mountain, unaware, blind." She nodded once, tears glistening in her eyes. I turned the page. There it was. Brother Corrado, his name inked with trembling strokes. Beside it, a sigil burned darker than the others, carved into the page itself. The mark throbbed in my vision. "What does it mean?" I asked. Laura swallowed hard. "It means that when Corrado fell, one of the seraphim was released. Not a whisper, not a nameless shadow, a seraph of ashes, one of the greatest among the fallen." The weight of her words crushed the breath from me. My friend had not only died, he'd given birth to something monstrous. I slammed the register shut, the clasps clanging. Why did no one tell me? Why did Vatican send me here without truth? Laura's face twisted with sorrow. "Because truth would break you faster. They believe duty is enough to keep you standing. But duty alone will not save you." I stood, pacing the chapel, my boots echoing against the stone. "So every watcher who came here, every one of them, they were never guarding the dead. They were sacrificing themselves one by one to keep the world safe." Laura shook her head. "Not safe, only delayed. The world is already bleeding. You are not a guardian, Bruno. You are the last link in a chain that was doomed from the first strike." Her words rang in the silence. I felt the cold creep deeper into my chest. Outside, the bell tolled noon, heavy and mournful. I pressed my hands to the altar, my voice low. "Then why keep me here? Why not let the graves break and be done?" Her gaze hardened. "Because if the last chains fall, the seraph of ashes will rise in full, and the world is not ready." The lantern flickered, casting long shadows across the stone walls. I thought of Corrado's smile, twisted into blackness, I thought of the choir beneath my feet, waiting for me to falter. I knew then that my nights ahead would not be survival. They would be a war of inches, a battle against my own weakness, and every breath I took would decide how long the world outside remained untouched. Laura closed the register with trembling hands. Remember this, Bruno. Every prayer you speak, every rule you obey is not for you. It is for everyone who walks free beyond these gates. Her words should have given me strength. Instead, they filled me with dread, because I already knew I would stumble again, and each stumble meant another chain breaking. The seventh night bled into the graveyard with a darkness thicker than pitch. Clouds devoured the moon, the air hung heavy, and even the snow refused to fall. I carried my lantern down the narrow path, lips raw from endless prayer. Each word felt empty now, stretched thin, but I forced them out all the same. Tonight was different. I felt it before the first gate. The silence had weight, pressing against my chest, and the iron crosses trembled faintly as though bracing for a storm. I reached the gate and whispered the prayer, my voice hoarse. As I pushed it open, a chill swept through me. From beneath the ground came the first hum, low, steady, building like the heartbeat of the earth. The black choir. Their voices surged up from the graves louder than ever before. The chant rippled through the soil, a hymn reversed, a psalm of damnation. The words twisted familiar verses into mockery, each syllable clawing at my memory. Chains break, sing with us. My lantern flame bent sideways, shivering as if it too wanted to join. I pressed my hand to my chest, forcing my breath steady, but then another voice cut through the choir. Bruno. It was Corrado again, clear, close, pleading. Brother, let me out. Do not leave me here. I staggered back, my heart clenching. His voice was exactly as I remembered, raw with desperation. The choir swelled around it, shaping their chant to match his words, weaving my name into their hymn. The crosses shook, snow cascading from their iron arms. The ground beneath me pulsed like a drum, and then the whispers joined. The nameless dead, dozens of voices layered, each calling my name, each begging, demanding, cursing. Bruno, break us free, break us free. My ears rang. My vision swam. I felt myself swaying, lips parting, ready to answer. The rules screamed in my mind, but they were drowned beneath the voices. I saw Corrado in the shadows, his hand stretched toward me. His eyes were wet with sorrow, his face twisted in pain. Please, he begged, for the sake of our vow, for friendship, speak and end this. My throat burned, the word rose unbidden, pressing against my tongue. Then I remembered the register. I remembered the sigil beside Corrado's name, carved dark into the page. Not my friend, not anymore. I bit down until blood filled my mouth. The taste shocked me back, anchoring me to the present. I dropped to my knees, clutching the lantern so hard the glass cracked. No, I hissed through clenched teeth. The choir shrieked, their harmony breaking into a roar. The nameless dead howled from the earth, claws scraping against the coffin walls. Corrado's face twisted, melting into ash and smoke, his voice warping into something inhuman. Yes, it snarled. Break the chains, break them all. I slammed my bleeding hand to the frozen soil, forcing the pain deeper, forcing my mind to hold. My body shook, but my voice did not yield. I will not, I whispered. The shadows writhed. The crosses rattled so violently I feared they would tear from the earth. The lantern sputtered, flames stretching tall, bending toward the ground as if dragged. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The choir fell silent. The whispers ceased. The ground stilled. Only the rasp of my breath remained. I collapsed onto the snow, shaking, drenched in sweat though the air was freezing. My lips bled from biting. My hand throbbed with pain, but I had not spoken. Dawn came slow. The bell tolled once, the sound deep and weary. I dragged myself back to the chapel, every step an effort. Inside, Laura waited. She saw my condition, the blood on my hands, the hollow in my eyes. She did not ask what had happened. She only whispered, "You endured." I shook my head. Barely. Her gaze lingered on me, sadness etched in her face. Every watcher says the same, until they do not. I slumped against the wall, lantern guttering in my lap. I knew she was right. Tonight I had resisted, but I also knew I would stumble again, and when I did, the chains would shatter. The chapel was colder than ever. My breath clouded the air as I paced, lantern swaying in my grip. The memory of the choir still thundered in my head, their chants crawling along my skin even in daylight. I knew I could not endure many more nights like that. Laura entered quietly, carrying the register. She set it on the altar but did not open it. Instead, she drew another object from beneath her cloak, a bundle wrapped in cloth so dark it seemed to drink the light. Her hands trembled as she set it down. "I should not show you this, but you will die if you go on blind." I unwrapped the cloth. Inside lay a book, smaller than the register but bound in leather darker than tar, its cover stitched crudely, as if from strips of flesh. The clasps were rusted, engraved with symbols I did not recognize. "This is not from Vatican archives," Laura whispered. "It is older. It was left here by the first watchers, those who bound the fallen. They called it the Codex of Chains." The moment my fingers brushed the cover, a shiver ran through me. The leather was warm, almost pulsing. I opened it. The pages were thick, the ink blacker than night, some letters smeared, others etched so deep they tore the parchment. Sketches filled the margins, circles of fire, crosses inverted and reforged, figures with wings broken and eyes hollow. One passage stood out, written in larger hand, the ink still fresh despite the age. "To guard is not to live." To guard is to feed the chains until the guard is eaten. The chains can be turned. With blood and prayer reversed, the fallen may be pulled into flesh again, and flesh can burn. I read it twice, my throat dry. It says, "They can be killed." Laura's face tightened. Not killed, consumed, burned in ways that erase them, but the cost is greater than death. I turned the page. The ritual was drawn in detail, a circle of iron and salt, a cross engraved with the watcher's blood, prayers spoken backward until the throat bled. At the center, the fallen would appear, stripped of shadow, forced into form. Only then could the watcher strike. I clenched my fists. If this works, I do not have to become another cross. I do not have to let them win. Laura shook her head sharply. "You do not understand. The ritual demands your life. Even if you survive the summoning, you will be unmade. Your body, your soul, even your name may be consumed. That is why no watcher has done it. That is why all of them chose death instead." Her words sank like lead, but I could not let them. Not after Corrado, not after the choir. "They chose death because they were afraid," I said. "I will not end like them. If I fall, I want to take them with me." Laura's eyes glistened, torn between sorrow and admiration. "Bruno, if you attempt this, you may destroy yourself before you even face them." I closed the codex, the clasps snapping shut like teeth. Then better destroyed in battle than buried in silence. That night I prepared. I found salt in the chapel stores, iron nails from the broken gate, candles black with soot. I cut my palm and let the blood drip across the wood of the altar, tracing the sigils I had seen. My hands shook, my vision blurred, but I forced myself to follow every line. Laura watched, pale and trembling. "If Roberto sees this, he will strike you down. He believes the rules are sacred." "Then he believes a lie," I growled. "The rules are chains for us, not for them." As the circle took shape, the air grew colder. The flame of the lantern bent inward, Drawn to the markings, shadows stretched long against the walls, forming shapes that did not belong to the room. Wings, eyes, teeth. The codex lay open before me, its script glistening as though wet. I pressed my bleeding hand to the page, and the ink burned against my skin. The shadows stirred. The crosses outside rattled faintly, as if in warning. The ground beneath the chapel trembled. Laura gasped. "Bruno, stop. It is listening." I lifted my eyes to the crucifix above the altar. The wood cracked, a drop of resin falling like a tear. For the first time, I wondered if heaven itself was watching, or if it had turned away long ago. I whispered the first words of the inverted prayer. The air shuddered. From beneath the floor came the answering roar of the black choir. The ninth night came without warning. Clouds blotted out the sky, and the graveyard drowned in blackness. The crosses rattled as though struck by unseen hands. My circle was ready, carved in salt and iron, the lines darkened with my blood. The codex lay open on the altar, its words burning against the page. Father Roberto stood at the doorway, his face pale. He had discovered me hours earlier, the ritual already begun. His eyes had burned with fury, but when he saw the cracks in the graves, the shifting soil, he understood. He did not stop me. He only said, "If you fail, I will hold the circle as long as I can." Laura knelt near the wall, hands clasped, whispering prayers despite the warning. Her eyes were wide, her lips trembling, but she did not leave me. I stepped into the circle, thorns of fear clawing at my chest. I raised the blood-marked cross and began the inverted prayer. My voice shook, each syllable scraping my throat raw. The ground shuddered. The black choir screamed from beneath, their chant surging in reply. The soil cracked, lightless smoke pouring upward. From the graves, shadows uncoiled like serpents. The crosses bent forward as though bowing to a king. Then the earth split wide at the center, and he rose. The seraph of ashes. His wings were vast, but they burned with fireless embers, feathers crumbling into sparks that died before they touched the ground. His body was tall and skeletal, wrapped in chains that hissed with heat. Where his face should have been, there was only a skull wreathed in smoke, eyes like coals buried deep. The black choir fell silent, their voices swallowed in awe of him. The seraph's voice thundered without a mouth. "Watcher, you dare call me, you dare bind me." My knees shook. The cross burned hot in my hands, blood dripping down its arms. "I do not bind you, I end you." I plunged the cross into the circle. The sigils flared, red as fire, casting light across the chapel. The seraph shrieked, the sound shaking stone from the walls. His wings spread, shattering windows, hurling shards of glass into the storm. The black choir surged from the graves, hundreds of forms clawing upward, their mouths filled with unholy song. The chapel shook, the roof splitting, snow pouring in. Roberto rushed forward, staff in hand. He planted it at the edge of the circle, his voice booming with prayer. "Hold, Bruno! Hold, and the chains will hold with you." The seraph lashed out, one wing striking Roberto. The old man staggered, blood spilling down his robe, but he did not fall. He pressed both hands to the circle, his body trembling as he forced the lines to hold. The cross seared my palms. I screamed, the inverted prayer tearing from my throat. The codex's words spilled like fire, filling the air with smoke and blood. The seraph stepped closer, chains breaking from his body one by one. His shadow fell over me, vast and suffocating. His eyes glowed brighter, burning holes into my flesh. "You cannot kill what was born before your world," he thundered. "You are only flesh, you are only ash waiting to scatter." I raised the cross higher, blood pouring down its length. Then ash meets ash. I drove it into the ground. The circle erupted in flame. Salt hissed, iron glowed. The air split with light that was not fire. The seraph shrieked, his wings twisting, feathers consumed in burning dust. The choir wailed, their song collapsing into cries of agony as they writhed in the smoke. Roberto screamed as the force tore through him, but still he held the line. His staff cracked, his body shaking, yet he did not yield. The Seraph of Ashes staggered, chains dragging him down, his body unraveling into cinders. He reached a clawed hand toward me, fireless fingers stretching close enough to sear my skin. I pressed the bloodied cross to his hand. Back to the pit. Light flared, the Seraph howled, his form collapsing into a storm of ashes that filled the air and vanished into the night. The choir fell silent, the ground sealed. The crosses stood still once more. I dropped to my knees, the cross charred black in my hands. Roberto fell beside me, blood soaking the earth, his eyes dimming. He looked at me one last time and whispered, "You held the chain better than I." Then he was still. Laura rushed to my side, tears streaming, clutching my arm. The chapel burned with smoke, but the graves were quiet. The Seraph of Ashes was gone. The choir was gone. But so was Roberto. His body lay near the shattered staff, eyes closed, blood dark against the stone. For all his sternness, for all his warnings, he had chosen to stand with me in the end. His silence was heavier than the silence of the graveyard. Laura knelt beside him, tears streaking her face. She touched his hand gently, whispering prayers too broken to finish. Then she turned to me. "You stopped it," she said, her voice trembling. "You ended the choir." I shook my head. My throat burned, words scraping like gravel. "I ended one. Not all." We staggered outside together. Snow fell again, soft and steady, covering the field of crosses. Many leaned as they always had, their iron arms stretching toward the sky. But now I saw them differently. So many stood over graves already empty. The register had been right. Watchers had failed for centuries. Chains had broken again and again. The Seraph of Ashes was not the only one. I limped through the rows, clutching the blackened cross. My breath clouded the air, each step sinking into frost. Laura followed in silence. When I stopped before Corrado's stone, she lowered her head. His name still glowed faintly, though the ground beneath was cold. The thing that had worn his voice was gone. But Corrado himself had never returned. "I thought saving this place would mean saving him," I said, my voice cracked. "But the graves do not give back what they take." Laura laid a hand on my shoulder. "You saved more than him. You saved the world beyond these hills, if only for a time." Her words did not comfort me. They only reminded me how fragile the victory was. The 13th bell tolled above us, slow and heavy. Its sound rolled across the valley, fading into the distance. For once, there was no whisper that followed. The graves were silent, but silence did not mean peace. I looked across the field at the countless crosses still standing. I thought of the register, of the names paired with sigils, of all the chains already broken. Those fallen were not here. They were out there, somewhere in the dark corners of the earth, waiting for the moment to rise again. The Seraph of Ashes had been one voice in a choir. The rest would not stay quiet forever. Snow stung my face as the wind shifted. I tightened my grip on the cross, its edges cutting my blistered hands. Laura's voice broke the stillness. "What will you do now?" I turned my eyes toward the mountains beyond the graveyard, where the storm gathered heavy and black. "What I must," I said. "The Watcher's duty does not end here. Not while the others still walk free." She bowed her head, tears glinting in her eyes. "Then may God go with you." I didn't answer. I did not know if God had ever been here. I stepped through the gate, whispering the prayer one last time. Behind me, the crosses loomed, rows upon rows, each one a memory of failure. The graves were quiet, but I knew the world beyond was not. The duty of the Watcher had not ended. It had only begun.